Well, that's the problem with speaking a dead language that loses precious words from its dictionaries.
Mhm.
Like one of my favorite, I've never met anyone who knew it, and
Oh boy, this feels like my chance.
you won't.
Okay, fair enough.
So
Hopes.
you likely know omniscient,
Of course.
all-knowing, omnipotent, all-powerful, omnipresent, present everywhere. We know that is infinite intelligence. We're tuned in, we can, but we're not that vast. But the word that applies to us, I've never met anyone who knew it, and it is omnificent, possessing full creative power. And someone said to me, "Oh, I'm not creative." And I said, well, we've already demonstrated as a species that we have full destructive power. So the opposite has to be true. And we have the power of the word, which has been a very overlooked power. But Ken Burns, the documentarian, said it's the most powerful force, I believe, on earth, the English language. And the English language is the language of the birds, this mythic language that I can get back to in a moment. But the possibility of speaking and having the lag time between pronunciation and experience kind of evaporate or fall into divine timing rather than you keep tripping over your tongue, contradicting yourself, or, letting yourself have a verbal outburst at somebody in order to relieve the pressure of the upset. Only you're stuck with that nasty taste in your mouth, and gosh, it can deaden your sensitivity.
One of Don Miguel Ruiz's 4 agreements is about honoring your word, be impeccable with your word, be impeccable with your word. And what I've noticed is, as I've paid more attention over the years to the meaning and the deep meaning of that lesson, is that when you actually start gossiping about someone, it may feel good in the moment or something because it creates, again, what Rabbi Gaffney talks about is this pseudo-interiority, a sense of me and you are on the inside, but that guy Christian over there,
ugly,
Christian,
yes.
And then it brings us closer, but not really closer. It just creates a false boundary where we feel like we might be closer, but not.
Except we also feel nervous because the other person is a betrayer.
Of course. But what you can really tell is that you can tell the aftertaste. The aftertaste is ashen and bitter. No matter how it might feel in the moment, maybe you get a little rush of closeness with the person that you're talking gossip with. Yeah. But then when you finish, everything is just a little more bitter and ashen in your mouth. And I say that obviously not literally, but energetically.
Yeah. And one might even be able to taste it. Just the bitterness of it, the dryness of it, the hopefully some, I don't want to use the word guilt, except I think it also means is a female pig. I'm not positive, but also, a little gold. So guilt, odd word. But in any case, yes, it doesn't taste good and it doesn't feel good. And so, gosh, so much to share. A little bit ago, when you were talking about love as the most abundant force in the universe, I have these quotes by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, a Jesuit priest and philosopher and anthropologist. And I read it when I was 20 in a book called his book, The Phenomenon of Man. And I think it was, if there wasn't the propensity toward union at the most rudimentary level, at the molecule itself, then what we call love couldn't appear in harmonized form. It's the glue that holds everything together. And I have another quote of his, and if you like them, I'll send you my very short collection, but they're so stimulating. And so he says there'll come a time when humanity will discover the power of love, and for a second time only, we will have discovered fire, something like that. We have the creative force in our hearts, on the tip of our tongues, on our fingertips. I mean, these things are so alive in us. And so a little piece of verse went floating through. They're so alive in us, and they are vital creative forces. And as we do, as you do, and become clearer and clearer of the programming, the stuff that gunked up the system, so that we have no impediments to the full expression of divine aliveness, that we use the word to communicate with others. I like the word communification. But I also, a word I heard was glucose. It's the sweetness that binds us all together. There's nothing that feels better. The Freudian analyst himself, Sigmund Freud, he figured everything came down to the pleasure principle, and he kept it down at the genitals, the anus, and then the mouth. And that's the best humans can do in their pursuit of pleasure. Find some way to stimulate one of these
holes.
3 holes. Exactly.
I mean, you got to throw the ear holes in there and the nose hole. Good smells, good music. You know, who doesn't like fresh baked cookies? You know, it smells good.
That is so true.
But yeah, it's the pleasure of the holes, or the pleasure of the heart, and pleasure of the spirit.
And the pleasure of wholeness. That's what we're really seeking.
Right.
And the more we refine our senses, our sensitivity, our spiritual awareness, the more exquisitely refined the pleasures can be. So it isn't a quick bump and grind and you get off and you're wasted. You know, it's an intoxicating state of ecstasy, I would guess, without chemistry. But that which, you know, people generate on their own. The human instrument is a divine instrument. Ask the English language. It says infinite, the infinite. And where is the infinite? Infinite. Oh, you mean all that's in here? The ocean's in this one little drop?
As Rumi said. I just finished a podcast today, actually, with Robert Edward Grant about Hermetic principles, Hermetic wisdom. And it occurs to me that the first principle of the Hermetica, as described in the Kabbalion, is the principle of mentality, which is all is mind, the universe is mental. And then if you combine that, and as the legend goes, Hermes was a contemporary of Abraham. But if you combine that with the start of Genesis, which was in the beginning there was the Word, right? So if the universe is the mind and in the beginning there was the Word, I think it's pointing to a very interesting thing in that words are actually the way that we think. To think without words is incredibly difficult. It's incredibly difficult. It's like trying to do math without numbers.
Gorgeous analogy.
You know, it's very, very hard, because that once we get in language, then we think through symbols and we think that's how we structure everything in our brain. And so it starts to make sense why they would say something like, and of course I know they mean the logos, and the word can mean many things, but they say the word. In the beginning there was the word.
Yes.
And I think it's because how we structure our mind, and our mind is participating in the greater capital M mind of the all.
Wow, yes. We have the word thought. People don't notice. There's also the word mentation, which I think is just all that worthless jibber jabber.
Yeah. Menturbation.
Yeah. Sentimental. Sentimental, worthless. It's the same as a penny for your thoughts. My thoughts are worth a whole lot more than that.
Yeah.
So, the language is playing us. It's like we're in a big organ and we're the monkeys. We're dancing to this music till we go, wait a minute, I don't think I like this number. I'm going to find what my own rhythm is. So, yeah, a big mind. And you were talking about your teacher, and
yeah, I think there's many different directions to go, but I think understanding how significant the way that we perceive the world actually creates the world.
Yes.
In this way that if this is a universal love story, we're for our own self participating in our own multiverse inside the universe, the one verse of the universe, and we're writing our own story that goes alongside this collective story. But we're writing the story often through our words, and of course our actions, our feelings, or everything. But the way that we describe it and the way that our mind even remembers it is in the way when we tell it to somebody, we reduce it to words.
Yeah.
And so everything is just categorized. It's like the Dewey Decimal System of our own consciousness is like how we remember things by the words we say about them.
Yes. Yeah. We're trapped like flies on fly paper.
Yeah, for sure.
But Peter Russell, a physicist, futurist, early on with Maharishi, and I did some PR work for him. But one of his lines in The Global Brain, or The Global Brain Awakens, is, at last, evolution is in the hands of the evolutionary material. So it means we can think it's all closing in on us. And for some who decided they didn't want to, they're happy to go elsewhere. It's getting pretty rough and horrible here. That's, we love, appreciate the service. We grieve with those who lost them, but we trust that this is all intentional in the sense that, or can be used for whoever holds the highest intention, holds the highest frequency among those who are looking for, there's this evolutionary impulse now to come together as a superorganism, and where every person is themselves to the fullest, sounding their singular note in the universe and contributing something that no one else can, that creates a universal harmony that lifts life for everybody. That's one vision. I call that the real commonwealth. The other vision is called herd mentality. Let's see if we can herd these people like ants. And there's even myrmidons is a word. They're like soldiers, like ants, just following orders. Isn't that what some people who are sick on the illusion that wealth, sex, and power is going to bring them anything that satisfies their soul. Those who have gotten carried away in a total nightmare, false dream, so be it for them. But they would like to have an ant colony. This is not predatory capitalism we're living in. It's parasitic capitalism. I mean, they're sucking the last flow through people. I mean, it's how do you be that hungry, that starving, and that blind that you have to suck energy from other people in an infinitely abundant universe that is happy to be in communication with you in every moment?
Yeah. Well, because no matter how much they suck, they're starving. It's the hungry ghost. No matter how much they keep trying to solve the same problem with the same thing that created the problem in the first place. And it's a Sisyphean chase. It'll never happen. And I think that's the challenge. They need to shift their mentality. And so to me, when I look out at the world, there's lots of existential threats, and there's lots of challenges, and there's lots of things that could use attention and love and nurturing and support. But to me, consciousness has to shift first.
Yes,
it
absolutely.
has to shift first, because
everything all fall down.
Yeah, and so that's where I've dedicated, the main thrust of my effort is like, all right, how do we help change people's minds and hearts and have them singing a different song.
Yes.
That includes but also transcends the song that they've been singing.
Yes. So, Lynn McTaggart said, we need a new lens. Most important, we need a new lens through which to view the world. Well, we see the world through the Word. A new lens means, going back to what we were sharing earlier, the need to tune up the language, tune up the false notes so that they're very resonant, so that they play this human instrument in a way that is scintillating, that is going to have me singing my high notes. And so tuning up the language and reinventing